we're gonna get into our favorite segment.
Weird Christian shit.
Ah, yes, weird Christian shit. I gotta prep this one a little bit. We're
Prep
talking about. There's this pastor. Actually, you know what? Let me back up. So, April, if I told you that there was a church called Mercy Culture, what would you assume about this church off the bat? If I was like, hey, there's a church out there called Mercy Culture, what would some of the values be? Like, what would their pastors be like if you just had to kind of go?
I would imagine very focused on mercy.
Yes.
And forgiveness and
Yeah.
grace and
Yep.
being a big tent kind of church where
Yep.
all are welcome.
Yep. Well, their pastor, his name is Landon Schott, sorry. He wrote a book. He actually wrote two.
Oh.
This one's called Jezebel, The Witch is Back. And
Wow.
here's a short description. I'm going to read these two paragraphs. This is from his words. Again, pastor of Mercy Culture. The spirit of Jezebel has risen to power in our culture and infiltrated the church. Her witchcraft has wreaked mass spiritual carnage through fear, manipulation, intimidation, and domination carried out by those who fall under her spell, even those in leadership. Her wickedness has wounded and scarred countless believers, leaving them fearful, depressed, defeated, sick, and confused. Because of Jezebel, some have lost hope and aborted God's call in their lives. Her assault will continue until all of God's people are dead or defeated. Jezebel's bloodlust for death and destruction will only be stopped when met with spiritual violence. God's people must rise up in the power of the Holy Spirit to expose the spirit of Jezebel and her evil plans, gain authority, and war against her victoriously. Jezebel, the witch is back. It will, and then it goes through all these different things. He also wrote a book. Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, I find the witch is back odd because where did Jezebel go?
Yeah, where's she been this whole time? And who is Jezebel just one person? Like I'm trying.
They make Jezebel sound like she's omnipresent.
100%. Landon also wrote a book called Gay Awareness, Discovering the Heart of the Father and the Mind of Christ on Sexuality. So, just a couple examples.
Gay awareness?
Yes. Now, a couple other things about this man, and trust me, when we're going somewhere, friends, hang in there. Landon and his church were trying to build like a center, I guess, for victims of sex trafficking, and we're arguing with like the town over how to build the facility. And so Landon went on his podcast and essentially called people witches and demonic. He said that that quote, they have a group of people that are actively trying to resist us around every corner for 2 years from helping survivors of human trafficking, and that this is spiritual. And he went on to say that they were evil and that they're demonic and there's a spirit of Jezebel over them, etc. Again, this is the pastor of Mercy Culture. And then most recently, he actually okay, so there's a scandal going on right now in evangelicalism, shocker, right? With Michael Brown. Michael Brown is a Messianic Jew, so he's a Jewish person who's a Christian. He's also an apologist, and he has allegations of inappropriate behavior with a woman in the 2000s that was sexual in nature. Now, Michael Brown denies the sexual part, but he admits that he had an emotional affair. Now, of course, April, you and I have been doing this for a while. We've heard this story before, and he was recently, Michael Brown, he's under investigation for alleged sexual misconduct. He was honored with a standing ovation, this is according to the Roy's report, at a conference last weekend at Mercy Culture, where Michael Brown serves as an apostolic elder. And essentially, Landon went off saying that there is a, what did he say? There's an accuser of the brethren who is going after men of God that have given their lives to build the kingdom. This is... To be clear, this is, the pastor of Mercy Culture, right? Okay. So all this is going on. Landon blocked me years ago. This is who they are.
Congrats.
Thank you. And then recently, Landon goes viral because he said this. Now, this is the same guy. This is the same dude. And by the way, one more thing while we're here. Whenever I hear the word apostolic or I hear things about like the demonic spirit, that sounds very much a part of like this new apostolic reformation that's kind of really become a very big player in evangelicalism. And I think Landon is either adjacent or swimming in those waters. A big telltale sign is this idea that God has raised up new apostles and prophets that are going to lead the church. And this comes with a lot of warlike language. This is why when he says we have to wage spiritual violence on Jezebel, it's a very classic kind of line from these NAR type of people. They believe that there is a spiritual war going on as we speak, and that demons are infiltrating people and trying to take over America, and that people like Landon and the new apostles and prophets in this Christianity have to rise up and war against these people through prayer, through action, etc. So we could probably do a whole deep dive on Landon on that level, but it's important to keep that in mind, because here's what he said the other day that has him going viral. This is real. This is not sarcasm. This is not him joking. Listen to this.
Hey guys, quick video. I just walked into an MC Prep board meeting and there's these balloons and a surprise gift. I'm like, what's this going out? And I just found out, I'm a little behind on the news. I'm a little slow, getting old. But I just found out we are the #1 school in Texas for least vaccinations. And I guess the news got a hold of it and they were trying to spin it like it was some awful thing. But I just want to congratulate all of the family members of MC Prep that embrace freedom of health, and they're not allowing government or science projects to affect how you live and lead your life. I know the entire world was shut down with insanity and people were fired from their job for forced vaccinations, and freedom is something that we take seriously. Religious freedom, freedom of our health. And so shout out to MC Prep for being the least vaccinated school in Texas. We'll take it, or as Mercy Culture say, we celebrate it. We'll put it on the board.
April,
I just want to also, there is a measles outbreak currently happening in Texas because of people who are not vaccinated.
I think it's time for my line. We live in the stupidest timeline. I got to record that and just start using that as a button. We live in the stupidest timeline that could possibly be in existence. We have a man who claims to be a Christian, who claims to stand on truth, making fun and making light of the fact that his school is, I don't know how you prove this, but it's the least vaccinated in Texas, and he's celebrating it like it's a good thing. Science saves lives. Vaccines save lives. No one is debating if people can have an adverse reaction to a vaccine. Anyone can have an adverse reaction to anything. Some people can't take Tylenol because they're allergic to it. Doesn't mean that Tylenol isn't an overwhelming net good for people. This idea that Landon is smiling and laughing, I mean, he's literally endangering children. And April, the thing that kills me is he frames it as freedom. Right? We don't want the government telling us how to live our life, while him and his tribe are actively taking over the government to tell trans people how to live their lives, and telling people that DEI hires are destroying the country, and we have to gut the government because it's too big and too bloated, which destroys the lives of other people. And this is the whole crux of what we've been yelling from the rooftops for years. Christian nationalists. Really, it was just in Matthew Taylor, the author of The Violent Take It by Force, he calls it this. Christian supremacists really is what we're talking about here. Yeah. These folks are always going to weaponize language to benefit them, right? If vaccine mandates, which by the way have been around for a very long time, vaccine mandates in public schools and the military have existed for decades. Suddenly
because they save lives.
Right. And suddenly that's big government infringing on them. But these same people have no problem taking over the government and using it as a bat to harm people that they think are demonically influenced. Wow.
It is wild to me, too, the whole religious exemption aspect of vaccines, because I've seen a lot of, Christian homeschool moms that are anti-vaccine will use the religious exemption to be able to allow to send their kids to school if they go to school without vaccinations or whatever. There is nothing in the Bible or in Christianity that would keep you from getting vaccinated. The whole religious exemption, it goes against my religion, is so stupid as a Christian. There's nothing that alone is just such a violation of actual religious persecution. Oh, my government is trying to save my children's lives from polio and measles, and I'm going to cry religious persecution or Christian persecution. We saw the same thing during COVID when Sean Foyt started holding super spreader worship events in the midst, like the height of a pandemic where millions of people were dying because they were claiming Christian persecution for government quote unquote shutdowns. And I heard of people that were complaining about Christian persecution who never shut down, who were still having services, who were not social distancing. At a church where I lived in Cleveland, Tennessee, they never once closed their doors. And they didn't social distance, and they didn't wear masks, and they encouraged their people to not get the vaccine because of literally so many different conspiracies that were around that vaccine. But they had a COVID outbreak where more than 10 people died in their church, and they still didn't learn the lesson. Like, we have a group of people that is willing to sacrifice older seniors and disabled people because of their own selfish interests, because the churches needed to stay open because that's how they got more money. That was what that fell down to. Because even in the Bible, you don't have to go to a church in order to have church. We are the body. Yep. We are the body. The early church, they met in homes for their church, like where 2 or 3 are gathered. Like they always twist these things to be Christian persecution, and they rile everybody up. Be like, oh, they're coming after your Christianity. They're coming after your God. They hate Christians. They hate this. Like, no, they're trying to save lives because there's a global pandemic and millions of people are dying. And you don't have the audacity to just wear a freaking mask? My body, my choice? It is all hypocrisy, and it is all projection, and it is not Christian persecution. That does not exist in America.
How is that loving your neighbor? I mean, let's just take it back to the basics, right? We were taught as children very early on in church that Jesus says we love our neighbor as ourselves. There is nothing that is tyrannical about wearing a mask, right? Or watching how close you are to someone during a global pandemic. In Texas, according to Texas here, it's saying they're reporting an outbreak of measles in the South Plains region of Texas. At this time, 198 cases, this is as of January, have been identified. 23 of the patients have been hospitalized. There has been one fatality in a school-aged child who lived in the outbreak area. The child was not vaccinated and had no underlying conditions. A child is dead because of the stupidity of pastors like Landon. Mm-hmm. That child did not have to die. We have a vaccine that overwhelmingly prevents the measles, virus or disease, and that child is dead. Parents are mourning the death of a child because they were not vaccinated and because there was a measles outbreak. This is ridiculous. It doesn't have to be this way. There's this language by people like Landon. They call abortion child sacrifice. Now, it's a complete mischaracterization of what's going on, but that's the language that they use, right? We're sacrificing our children to Molech. No, Landon, you and your anti-science, anti-intellectual stupidity is the one that's actually sacrificing children. You're the ones who are actually causing real children to die for no damn reason. There is no reason this child should not be alive today if they've just gotten vaccinated. Period. Full stop. I wish we had Jessica Malati Rivera here to help us out, but I believe in the year 2000, we pretty much declared measles not a thing anywhere. Like, we pretty much eradicated the disease. And now it's back because we have this anti-intellectual right-wing apparatus that is pushing things that are literally killing children. And these are the same people who have the audacity to tell you that because Drag Queen Story Hour exists, America is in jeopardy of losing God's divine protection, and that those people should be thrown in prison. It's unreal. It's unreal that we are here.
It is also spread to New Mexico. There are several cases in New Mexico now, and a second death occurred in New Mexico as well, also from someone who is unvaccinated. They have not revealed the identity of that person, but that they were unvaccinated as well. That's just going to continue to climb as it spreads, and it spreads when people are unvaccinated. And a lot of children are early children are unable to be vaccinated with you put people at risk, like babies who have not had the chance to get vaccinated yet or haven't got their second dose to be full, like their MMR vaccine. Like, you're putting people who are trying to do the right thing at risk as well.
Yes. Yes. And lest we forget, April, RFK, the person who's currently in charge of our health nationally, right? He went to Samoa when there was a measles outbreak there and downplayed and blamed it on the vaccine. So what happened was what actually happened was there was a case of a nurse mixing the wrong medication. I think it was a muscle relaxer by accident with the vaccine, and the child died from it. That got spun, though, that vaccines are killing kids in Samoa. RFK goes down there, works with the government of Samoa. There's this huge anti-vaccine sentiment. Measles has a huge outbreak there, and people die because of what RFK did with the government pushing this propaganda based on a lie. We are not looking at a future where our children are flourishing. We are not looking at a future where science has the opportunity to save lives. This government, Trump's own government, tried to defund cancer research. And somehow we're led to believe that we are the anti-Christian, godless, crazy progressives because we think that's a bad idea. What are we doing here? And we got pastors celebrating the stupidest shit you ever heard. Hey guys, congratulations to everyone. We are the least vaccinated school. You might as well just say, hey guys, congratulations. 90% of our kids believe that the earth is flat. We're really doing a great job educating our kids, aren't we? That's how stupid you sound, Landon. Like, if I ever had the chance to talk to this guy, he'll never talk to me because he's a coward. They always block me every single time. I've been blocked for years. But if I ever talked to that coward of a human being, Landon, I would tell him that's exactly what you're doing. You might as well tell your kids that the earth is flat and say, look, quality education, because the Bible says so. Because Jesus says, go to the ends of the earth. Therefore, the earth is flat. That's how stupid you sound.
And it's worse, though, because I don't know anyone who's died from believing that the earth is flat.
Yeah, good point. You're right. It's more dangerous.
But it's literally like him just saying, oh my gosh, you guys, guess what? We're voted the school with the most chance. Hold on, brain. With the highest chance. I literally had it and then I lost it. It was gonna be good. I was rolling into it.
But no, fine.
I feel like he's literally bragging about how his school has the highest chance of dying from preventable diseases.
Right.
Like, look at us. We have the highest chance of dying from preventable disease. Let's put it on a t-shirt. Let's put it on a t-shirt. Yeah. Look, I go to a school where I'm more likely to die.
Right. We sneeze on each other for fun because herd immunity. It's like, what are you doing? It's stupid. It's so dumb. And deadly. And these folks think that somehow, not April, what the kicker to all of this, right, is not just that Landon and his crew are so anti-intellectual and ultimately ignorant. It's that they think everyone else has to succumb to their brutal fundamentalism that would kill more people. People like Landon really believe that we should defund vaccine research and that we shouldn't mandate in public schools certain vaccines that prevent diseases that save lives. They think that. They think that we should be in a society where people like Landon are the smartest folks in the room. They really think that because, look, to be clear, if you're new to the show, maybe you didn't grow up as an evangelical Christian like April and I did. And April, tell me if I'm wrong on how you heard it. But there's this Christian supremacy mindset in these churches. They believe that they have a very special, almost secretive knowledge that's been given to them by God because of how they understand the Bible. They believe that and we covered this, by the way. I did a response to Christian nationalism on the TNE podcast live last Wednesday. You can watch it here. There's this, the logic goes like this. We as Christians believe in truth. The Bible is God's inerrant word to us. Therefore, if we follow God's word, we are implementing truth that corresponds to reality. Therefore, whoever does not do that is not based in truth. That's the general stepping stones to get to how they think. But what they don't tell you is that A, they're interpreting the Bible through some dogmatic and presuppositional approaches that are actually really not even accurate to how the Bible thinks about itself. And number two, they forget or fail to realize that the world's much bigger than their dogmatic ideology. So in response to that, what they say is, look, because we have this truth from God and everyone else doesn't, we have a special obligation to be in charge and to lead the culture because we have truth on our side and the world believes a lie.
Yep.
And here we are.
Well, There are so many things that go into this mindset too. When you grow up in an evangelical world that is very Christian nationalist, whether they realize that or not, you are taught to have major suspicions about anything that is not Christian. Scientists, doctors, experts on anything, researchers,
higher education.
Professors. Higher education. You are taught to automatically be suspicious of those things. And it's honestly probably why you have a lot of people in the MAGA movement right now who are deeming themselves experts on the war in Ukraine and experts on, like, they are like, oh, well, I know because they read some article from, you know, russia.info.ccc.gov.
Alex Jones.
They're like, whoa, like, see, I know more than this. I know more than that because I have God in me, you know, God. What is it? God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. So you have all these people that are literally like, well, I believe God in me more than I believe this expert on this, despite this person going to school for over a decade and having all, like, studying this for their entire careers. Like, you're taught to doubt those things by default. You're literally trained to be ignorant and to ignore facts. So that's why when you have someone like Trump come along, you had a group of people, white evangelicals, primed and ready to accept this new source of truth because we already believed everything else was fake news. So Trump 100%. Coming in and saying that was just tickling their fancy, was just, you know, reinforcing their preconceived ideas already.
I don't like sounding this way. And there's no doubt that any group of people, religiously or not, have issues, right? You can find all kinds of problems with anywhere because people are people. We do dumb things. But personally, this is just my opinion, this is not any data, I am convinced that if white evangelicals were for science and for empirical research and cared about truth and cared about the actual human good of all their neighbors, right? We would have a livable wage in this country. We would have affordable health care in this country. We would not have Elon Musk, you know, running the gamut in the government. We wouldn't have Donald Trump. We wouldn't have any of that. If you look at the data, the only main reason why we are where we are is because of the fundamentalism and the zealotry and the fury of white Christians throughout American history. You can pick it up really anywhere, but once you start with integration in the 60s and 70s and you see that white evangelicals opposed MLK, Jerry Falwell, the founder of Liberty University, opposed school integration. He actually started private schooling out of that, right? Once you realize that during the AIDS epidemic, it was Jerry Falwell and white Christians who thought that God was judging the gays through the AIDS epidemic and therefore they couldn't be helped. You can trace so much of the harm and the hurt that's been caused by two marginalized communities because of white Christians. You really can. There's so much history on this. I mean, the Bible told them so by J. Russell Hawkins. There are so many books that document this. And it makes me, like, so angry because I grew up in that world as a Christian. I was radicalized by those people. And I realized as I got more curious that something doesn't add up. And here we are now, right? Where we're on the outside, April, looking at this white evangelical thing where we literally have this dude celebrating to put it on his board at school that, hey, we're the least vaccinated school in Texas. That's the level of stupidity we have to deal with now in 2025 America.
I know. Wild. What a time to be alive.
And we're here every step of the way. Hey friends, that was just a snippet of our full conversation, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear the rest of it. We go way deeper in the full episode. So don't stop here. Head over to the Tim and April Show on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and watch the full video. And hey, while you're there, drop a comment and let us know what you think.